signal now for when I'm needed. But when that light hits the sky, it's not just a call. It's a warning to them.
Yes, sir. Welcome to the Gotham Chronicles Beyond the Bat Signal. I am your host, Dominic Unica. Join me as we dive into the depths of Batman's lore, dissecting the Rogues Gallery, and uncovering the stories of our iconic vigilante known as the Dark Knight, who just turned 85 years old, celebrating Batman Day yesterday of September 21st. Thank you very much for listening to today's episode, where we're going to discuss episode 1 of the Penguin and review it. And I am not going to do this alone. Joining me is going to be my wife, Victoria. But before we get this rolling, I want to thank each of our listeners for tuning in. And for those of you who are new, welcome. You can catch new episodes anywhere you listen to podcasts, including Spotify, Apple Podcasts. But if you want to follow along and what we're doing, feel free to follow me at X/Twitter at Beyond Bat Signal. And if you like what we're doing, please consider giving 5 stars, rate and review the show on any platform where you get your podcasts. It goes a long way to supporting the show and allows us to be seen. Now, let's get into, I'm so excited to talk about this. Vic, I don't know if you are, but we're going to talk about episode 1 of The Penguin. Full spoilers ahead. So, wifey, welcome to the show.
Well, hello, everybody, once again.
So we're fresh off watching The Penguin episode 1, and I've watched it now 3 times. So, what was it? Thursday, Saturday, and then this morning?
Yep.
You're how many times?
I think about 2, I will say 2.5, because I started watching it yesterday when my parents were over, didn't complete the full episode.
Okay, so, but you notice a lot of things. Full disclosure, I loved it. What'd you think?
Loved it. 10 out of 10.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And we're going to get into it and like the little specifics. I'm not sure how long this is going to go. I was telling my parents, especially my dad, who loves the Sopranos and like all those mob shows, that he would love it. And I was telling my in-laws / your parents that they would love it. And then your mom, who's become quite the
Batman fan.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
she's always been a Batman fan, but I feel like now she appreciates it in a totally different way since you've kind of opened her eyes of who Batman is and the psychology behind all the characters, really. And I think that's what gravitated me to the Penguin in the first place after watching the Batman. And I told you, and you'll always remind me, that I said the Penguin needs his own show.
Yeah.
I want to see this.
Yeah, walking out of the movie theater March 4th, I remember, it's just the day before my birthday, and you're like, Penguin needs his own show. And I'm like, oh yeah, like what we got, which felt like a large sample size, but I was like, I want more of the Penguin. And we're getting 8 episodes, 8 full hours of Colin Farrell as Penguin. And totally unrecognizable, would you say?
Oh, my parents were asking who plays this character, and I was like, I need to pull up his photo so you can see the transformation that was done to this man to play the Penguin. It's just incredible through his voice coaching and his appearance,
even his bodysuit.
It just, yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, so let's just tee this up. So we're going to do like a little bit of a recap and then what we loved about it. So it starts off right after the Batman ends. It goes in like as to like, okay, there's a flooding And like if you recall, near the end of right at the end of the Batman, you have Penguin looking out into the city, and that's kind of where it kicks off. Then you hear the news in the background about the flooding, and then you have Bella Real on the screen and like talking about like like there needs to be a change, and you have news reporters talking about how the Batman was at like helping people, saving people from this flood, and then like seems like there's gonna be an all-out war. And sure enough, then they just kind of zoom into the Penguin and what's going to happen. And then we have, Alberto Falcone, who is like kind of on the scene and coming back, obviously, because his father's dead. So who's the new head of the family? Alberto Falcone. And I don't know. And this is like the biggest WTF moment. I thought it was for me. Because I was like, okay, he's going to play a big role. Do you want to kind of talk about what happened to him? They wasted no time with what happened. So where, like, he kind of enters the scene. Penguin's walking in. He goes back to the Iceberg Lounge. And then, he gets, it looks like jewelry, pictures. Mm-hmm. He's got some stuff on, it looks like VD and some pictures. I think I already said that. And then who shows up? Alberto Falcone, right?
Yeah, and he's acting a little bit sly. You also see he's a bit lost as to how am I going to fill my father's shoes at this point. And yet he still has so there's a vulnerability and an arrogance all at once that you're seeing with this kid. You can tell he came from a well-to-do family and was given everything. And sometimes I feel like people who come from that type of wealth and entitlement, there's just a cockiness to that.
Yeah. It looked like he had some, like, he's worried because he's like, I got big shoes to fill, and how am I going to do this and undertake it?
And then he sees the Penguin, and he's saying, like, his father has always told him that, like, the Penguin's a good guy, but can't be 100% trusted, I feel like.
Yeah, because he was always, scraping some carrots off or something like that, where he's just scraping somebody, taking some extra cash for himself. Right? And
but still reliable, still showed up, still did the job. And so Alberto Falcone sees him, and I thought the Penguin played it off. Oz played it off really, really well.
Masterfully.
Yeah. Saying like, oh, I'm so glad you're here. Like, this saves me a trip. I was actually going to bring this to you. Yeah. Meaning all the jewelry that he was about to take.
Yeah. So then they sit down, and you can kind of tell that Falcone's like, trying to stay off drugs. That's what my impression was. I don't know if it was you. But they're having some drinks, and then Oz starts talking about Rex Calabrese. He goes on with that story about how he was just a legend. Like, yeah, he was part of the mob, but like, he tried to give back to the community. And then Alberto's just like laughing at him. He's like, that's your effing dream. He's like, that's who you want to be. He's like, you think I want to be a small time? And he just kind of starts laughing at Penguin, mocking him. And out of nowhere, Penguin takes out his gun and shoots him.
Oh, it was intense right off the bat. I was not expecting him to die.
Yeah, no. I was like, I think you said, is this a dream? And I'm like, it has to be. I'm like, no, he's going to live. Like, he's going to be part of the series much longer. No. Right off the bat.
There's chaos.
So I actually love that part. I mean, it's action right off the bat. And then, obviously, Penguin starts laughing. And then it kind of hits to him. He's like, oh, I got to dispose of this body. So they do. And then, yeah, they see some kid. He wraps up Alberto's body in like a body wrap, throws him down the stairs, gets down, and then he's noticing some kids trying to steal his car. And one of them, so it's a new character that we're introduced to. His name's Victor. I think it was Aguirre. Anyway, and he notices that he's got a little bit of a speech impediment. And Penguin's like, okay, like,
he's different.
Yeah. So he's like, you know what? Okay, you're going to come with me and you're going to do as I say. Otherwise, I'm going to gut you like a fish. So he puts him in and brings him in the car, and they have to try to dispose of the body. And yeah, what did you think of Victor's character overall in that first episode?
Well, I thought his performance was really great. You saw his vulnerability. You could see that there is a sense of belonging that's wanted, that's needed. And I feel like our podcast conversation is a total spoiler alert. So
yeah,
if you haven't watched the episode, you must watch it. But otherwise, yeah, thanks for joining us and diving deep into this. Victor played it really, really well. I love the fact that there's a speech impediment there. There's some relatableness. I don't even know if that's a word.
Yeah.
With the penguin, because the penguin is different. You see a later scene when they're both on the subway together, and Oz looks at the accessibility chairs, and he's like, yeah, no, like, I'm gonna stand, even though you can tell his foot is in pain. And the kid catches on to this too. There's a connection made with Victor.
Yeah, but he's also like looking at Oz as like, there's a softness to Oz, and he's like, okay, like, I mean, he even has like this little smirk from time. He's like, okay, like, he at one point where Penguin sees that handicap spot or seat, and he's like, he kind of turns away from it. He's like, okay, or when he's got Dolly Parton, 9 to 5 song. Oh man, I've been playing that nonstop. So. And if you haven't listened to it, you should listen to that first thing in the morning. I can guarantee it's going to put you in a good mood.
I have to say, like, as much as the film itself is dark and gritty, there's a lightheartedness to this episode. So I'm really curious how the rest of this season continues.
Yeah.
Because you catch yourself being in suspense, and your mouth drops.
Yeah.
And then there's times where you're cracking a smile with some of the quotes that Oz says, and you're like, did he just say that? And we caught ourselves rewinding it just to hear it again because his tone and delivery was so funny.
Yeah, like Oz, as usual, kind of like steals the show. Like his humor is great, and as well as his seriousness and his intelligence. So that's the one thing I actually loved was, like, they kind of show Oz as like this underdog, and they showcase how intelligent he is, because this show is opened wide up, and by the end of the episode, they wrap it up in a bow so perfectly. But like, the one line where I just kept laughing at was, okay, so they're in the car, him and Victor, they got the body in the car, and they have to go and drop it off. And one of the first things Oz says to Victor is, "You like this smell? It's new. Aqua Paradise."
For the air freshener.
Yeah. I love that one.
Aqua Paradise.
Oh, yeah. Makes me want to get one.
I think I actually Googled it. I'm like, is this a real thing?
Yeah, you did. So then, they dispose the body into this red car, and they just kind of throw it in there, and they go like, he says, "Okay, Victor, you have to turn around." And Victor's like, "Oh, no, wait, I can help you." So in the end, he kind of convinced him, like, I'll try to help you. I will help you. And he's like, it's all about loyalty at this point. So Oz trusts this one kid. So then they go to his mom's, or Oz's mom's house, which is on the east side. And he's like, I grew up on the east side. Right? And you picked up on something. Do you remember what you said to me?
Yeah, so when he was first trying to identify Victor and he saw his license, or his identification card, I can't recall, but it showed his address. And that's when he made the connection that he grew up over there.
And they even talk about, like, was it Slurpees or Slushies?
Oh, if we're talking about quotes again? Yeah, quotable. Oh, man. Oh, it's so funny. It's like, Oz asked Victor, he's like, have you ever had a a slush puppy, I think he called it, or a puppy slush, or
something like that.
Something. And the kid's like, yeah, I've had it. He's like, have you ever mixed it? He's like, no. He's like,
oh, you're missing out.
Yeah.
You're missing out. So we get introduced to Oz's mom. And what was your take on Oz's mom and their relationship?
You can tell that that Oz takes care of his mom, that he's basically the only one. And he said it to his mom too. He's like, if something happens to me, there's no one else to take care of you. So he definitely takes on a caregiver role in this family dynamic. His mother also seemed very strong and reminded him of his gifts and his talents, even if it's a ruthless mobster of some kind. She knows the shenanigans that he does, and she's accepting of this. And she also is aware when he says, okay, like, Mom, we got to get out of here. We got to go. And alarms went off, and she's asking, like, what did you do, Oz? Like, tell me, what did you do? And then he tells her, okay, well, I killed Carmine's son.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And she's upset by it, but she's more upset at the fact that, like, he's saying to her, like, Emma, like, what do you want me to tell you? Like, I did this as in a moment of, like, weakness. And then she reminds him, like, no, do you know who you are? We don't run away. We stay and we put up a good fight. We don't let them smell the fear, which I find really ironic, actually, that here she is talking to him about this when in an earlier scene, he's trying to convince the Falcone family. I think they're family.
Yeah. Don Vidi was he was talking to Vidi, and Vidi was just kind of like, no, we're gonna shut down this drug plant. And Oz was kind of fighting back, like,
he's like, yeah, there's blood in the water, but we're not gonna run. We're not gonna shut down just because of that.
He's like, and I got new stuff, new shipments. He's like, we can go. Anyway, during that scene, so, well, let's wrap up, like, that meeting with the mom. So, like, the one thing I wanted to point out was they show a lot of family photos. So you can tell that dad was in the picture at one point, and then he wasn't. And then there was, it looked like siblings.
Brothers.
So it's like, it makes you wonder, like, what happened to the siblings? Because I'm sure that in later episodes that they're going to reveal what happened. Maybe even to dad.
And I think that's what makes the Penguin so likable, that even though he's this gangster and he does really bad things, there's a sense of, like, vulnerability, and there's a sense of family love there. And you can tell you just want to peel back the layers and say, like, well, who is the Penguin? Why is the Penguin the way he is?
Yeah.
What shaped him?
Yeah, because he's got his soft side, and I'm like, man, for as evil as this man is, I want to hug him. Like, there's something soft about him that I like. Now, with Don Vidi, so, he's meeting with Vidi, and I keep saying Don Vidi, and I realize Johnny Vidi. So, he's meeting up with him and, trying to continue selling drugs, and then in comes Sophia Falcone. And I thought right off the bat, she just walks in and has an immediate presence. So I kind of paused it for Victoria, and I had to tell her, like, I was like, based on especially the Dark Victory comic, she is a force to be reckoned with. She's crazy, and, like, I feel out of all the characters, most excited about her and what she does, because she's nuts. And, she has this presence where it's like a smile, but it's scary. Like, it's very menacing. But again, Oz plays it off. She asks about her brother, like, what happened? I was supposed to see him and meet up with him, and nothing. But she suspects something. And later on in the episode, they do have lunch, and again, she just asks him, like, you don't know anything that happened to Alberto? Like, she's like, it's just weird. He's like, no, nothing. Right? And, you know, she's obviously going to have a big role to play later on in the episode, which we'll talk about. But then, before the Penguin disposes of Alberto Falcone's body, like into the car, I forgot to mention that they take the ring, which belonged to Sal Maroni, right? And it was such an important, it was like a power piece, right? Like, it's like, you know, like, we own you. Now, before I continue with how the ring plays such a factor, what was your take on Sofia Falcone, and I'm pretty sure it's Kristen Milotti who played her? First, I guess, reaction as to how she was, how she played the part. What was your thoughts?
I thought that Sophia, I think you perfectly described her, actually, is that she seems put together.
Yeah.
But then, you know, there's a bit of a psychotic side. And she says that she came back from Arkham rehabilitated. And really, though, you see the gauze around her neck that's perfectly tied up like a bow, so it looks put together. But you're wondering, what are you hiding behind that neck piece?
She also wears like a turtleneck quite actually all throughout the episode, right? Like she's covering her neck. Yeah.
Line?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't think I even noticed that. I only noticed the gauze that was wrapped around that. So that's a really good observation. I think that she's going to be a key character in this series. It's not just a supporting character, so I'm interested to see her role develop in this series.
Would you say that it was like, for the scenes that she was in, she basically, like, it was her and Colin Farrell that just absolutely stole the scenes?
Oh, totally. And they're both ruthless and ambitious at the same time.
I love it.
So are they going to work together in this? Do they become enemies?
Yeah.
What happens?
I'm kind of scared, like, because Penguin also has an alibi named Eve. And, you know, I'm wondering what happens to her, because, yeah, he's hiding things. He clearly killed Alberto Falcone. So it's like, what is Sophia going to do? And actually, in that meeting where he first sees Sophia, you know, he was shocked because he thought that she was in Arkham. And then it's like, you know, we should grab lunch. And, you know, but you see that little bit of shock factor where he's like, oh my God, she's out. Like, she's not supposed to be here.
Like what is her next move? What is she going to do?
Yeah.
Because he knows that she's psychotic.
Yeah.
And unpredictable.
And she even mentions, like, she's like, she has that nickname, the Hangman, which is a total nod to Dark Victory. As spoiler alert, she was the Hangman killer. And I wonder if that kind of gets explored. Kind of hope it does. Victoria was like, well, what was the Hangman? I'm like, she was the one behind killing all these cops and would hang them. Anyway, so any more thoughts on Sophia?
I'm just so curious to see where this main character goes with Penguin.
Yeah, me too. I'm actually so pumped about it. And, like, on a side note, I was listening to a podcast where, you know, and they interviewed her, and the one thing that stood out to me was she wanted to be part of the Batman universe. And growing up was, if there was any movie that she could be part of, any superhero movie, it was Batman. And she went into this where she was trying out for this role, and she was doing a test and all that, and, like, you know, she was expressing to Matt Reeves why she loves the Batman, and she didn't hear back for weeks, and she was like, oh shucks, like, I didn't get the role or get the part. But I think it was after a month that she heard back and she was so excited. And like obviously like she's got a meaty part into this series, and I'm kind of, who knows what happens to her? I have no clue. But if it transfers over to Batman Part 2, oh man. Like and it's just one episode that we've seen her.
Yeah.
And I thought she did a fantastic job.
So you're telling me that she manifested this role.
Basically, she manifested this. Yeah, she basically like ever since she manifested it. Thank you, universe. Now, the ring. So, as I was talking about, was Penguin takes that ring that belonged to Sal Maroni and takes it off his dead finger. And then once he meets up with Sal,
You mean he took it off?
Or takes it off of Alberto. Yeah, sorry. Mm-hmm. All these Italian names. And then, and I'm Italian. And so he goes, meets up with Sal Maroni at Blackgate Prison. So right off the bat, like Sal's just like, what the heck are you doing here? I don't even want to see your smug face. And Penguin's just saying, like, listen, basically trying to make amends, right? Like he's just trying to, like, call it a truce and let's try to do some business together. And Sal shuts him down. He's like, no, you're two-faced. I am never going to trust you. You sweeten me and my boys up, and I'm never going to trust you again. Penguin's like, okay. Gets up, and as he leaves, he kind of goes back to Sal and gives Sal his, I guess, one of his favorite possessions that Carmine took away from him, which was that golden ring. And Sal's just like, how did you get that? He's like, doesn't matter how I got it. So they kind of leave you with that. And it's like, it's a very important part that, you know, you have to kind of recall throughout that episode, because I think it's going to be a huge factor. Now, with the Maronis and the Falcones, they don't get along. It's two mob families that are trying to take over territory. Does that intrigue you at all, Vic? Like,
yeah, you made the comparison of The Sopranos, and I think that's a really fair statement after watching that entire series. And if you haven't watched The Sopranos, you need to watch it. It is fantastic. Although I will say it was difficult at times to watch just because of the violence against women, just seeing how women are mistreated. And I wonder if we're going to also see the same thing with Sophia's character trying to manage
all these men
in the Gotham underworld.
Yeah. She gives a look. Now, okay, so after they see Penguin visits Maroni, you know, fast forward in the episode, Penguin's driving and he's got a plan with Victor that we don't really see established. It's kind of like not skipped over, but they discuss it, but they don't show the viewer, right? And it's kind of left up to
keep your phone on you.
Yeah, he just mentions, listen, keep your phone on you.
Keep your available.
Yeah. So, and you're like, okay, well, where's this going? And then Penguin's driving, and I love the little Easter egg, by the way, of where Penguin lives. And it's Burgess Jewelry. So his apartment's just above it, which, if you guys don't know, and you never watched the Batman 66 series, the man who played Penguin in 1966 was Burgess Meredith. Or many of you would know him from Rocky Balboa, and he was Mickey. Now, they also show the injury. So Penguin has like a clear penguin waddle. Victoria had to turn away from this because she is not a foot person whatsoever, but you can see that his foot is mangled. And that's why he has such a distinct waddle.
And he also has a foot brace of some kind, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now.
And I think that also plays into Colin Farrell's physical transformation, how he plays the entire part so incredibly well. It's convincing that you forget who the actor is and you're totally pulled into who Penguin is.
Yeah.
It's easy to buy in.
Oh, yeah.
Because of the stellar performance.
Oh, yeah. Now, while the show's slowly wrapping up, I think there was like 20 minutes left. And in that plum purple car, you know, Penguin's spotted by Sophia. And Penguin's basically got this, oh crap look in his face, and he starts taking off. And Sophia's boys catch up to him, and he does a pretty good job. He even takes out one of Sophia's boys with the Aqua Paradise car smell, right? Stabs someone, it looks like in the eye. But then Penguin's taken out, beaten up, and knocked out. The next scene is Penguin sitting on a chair, being beaten to a pulp, and kind of is like, coming to his senses. He's got like a razor wire underneath his armpit. And Sophia asks, I'm going to ask you again, do you know what happened to Alberto? And he's like, no. And then she was asking, well, one of the boys that was at the scene saw you at the Iceberg Lounge. And do you know this boy right here? And he looks, and you can distinctly tell that it was one of the boys that was trying to steal his car. And she asks him again. It's like, do you know this boy? And he's like, no. So she takes the gun, shoots this kid right in the head, and literally is trying to put fear in Oz. And I feel like I skipped over a big part where while Penguin's in the car, he was trying to call Victor, and Victor wasn't picking up. So like you alluded to, which thank God he did, where he's like, remember, pick up your phone. Well, Oz was trying to call him, and before he got knocked out, he was calling Victor, and Victor wasn't picking up. Okay. So
two things about that. I think one, the scene with Sophia in that moment demonstrates Oz's fear, vulnerability, and yet his ambition to take control and be a ball boss. It's like, nah. Like, this is him. Like, this is the kid. Like, I wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
Like, that's his drive. He will do and say anything in that moment to ensure his safety so that he can regain control of the situation. And then you have Sophia that's like, yeah, whatever, impulsive. And it's like, you say this is it? All right, boom. There you go. There goes, unfortunately, the child.
But there was multiple times where one of her guards was just getting that razor line thread, whatever it was, and just squeezing the armpit. Actually, my mother-in-law was like, is it going to get worse? Is it going to get worse? And I'm like, I don't think so. And sure enough, yeah, like, there you can see blood going through.
And then going back to Victor, even though you see Oz trying to get a hold of him and he's frustrated, like, where the heck is this kid? Like, why isn't he picking up his phone in this moment?
Yeah.
And then the kid pulls through for him.
Oh, clutch. So then you hear this car just rumbling through, and then a huge, like a honk. So Sophia's like, what the heck? So the guards race out, same thing with Sophia, and she sees this red car, the exact red car that Penguin and Victor dump Alberto in. So they go in, they look at the car, and they're like, okay, like they see a huge brick at the bottom where it's like the gas pedal is. And then they crack open the trunk. And do you want to tell them what you see in the trunk?
You see the brother.
Yeah, Alberto.
Yeah, and with his pinky cut off.
Yep, where he used to have the ring.
Mm-hmm. And in Sophia's face, you see sadness, you see anger, and you see revenge.
Oh, and she lets out a roar of a scream. And it's like, oh, man, things are about to get real. But not only that, on the trunk, once you crack it open, it said in huge letters, payback. So they made it seem, Penguin and Victor, totally made it seem like it was the Maronis giving payback to the Falcones. And what was missing was the finger, the same finger that had the ring on it, which belonged to Sal Maroni. So Sal got his ring back, and then it almost seems like it's war, right? This was a hit by the Maronis, which we fully know it wasn't. It was by Penguin and
Victor.
Yeah. Now, what was your thoughts at that part right there? Like of how they wrapped it all up.
It is on. And it was actually, there were so many moments. I feel like we've skipped over so many little things. Like the Penguin talking about the air freshener, saying Aqua Paradise.
I love it.
To Victor. And then all of a sudden, during the chase, with, I think it was Sophia's bodyguards in that moment that were after him in the car chase.
Yeah.
And then he used that same air freshener as a weapon to get away from one of the guys that was about to get him. And then at the very end with Victor, when they're celebrating, like, yeah, we pulled off this entire scene. We took the heat off of us, more so the Penguin. And they're enjoying a Slurpee together.
And what did they do with the Slurpee?
They freaking mixed it.
They mixed the flavors. And what did we mix the other day where I'm like, oh, it's good. Yeah, it's better. It's not just better, it's
the best.
Yeah. Yeah, it was the best. And I thought that was such a funny way to wrap up that episode. And then, of course,
I think we even went to bed, but before we were brushing our teeth, John was playing the Dolly Parton song. 9 to 5, and here we are brushing our teeth, jamming to the song and dancing like total fools, because you're just like, it was such an intense episode, and then you have these moments that you're like, holy shit, like, this is so funny. But for me, I'm just like, give me more. I cannot wait. Get me my popcorn, get me my comfy blanket, get me my coffee. I'm ready to sit down, and I cannot wait for the next episode to be released.
Yeah, well, the next episode is next Sunday. So we watched it Thursday night, and then obviously we watched it. Well, I watched it 2 more times. You watched it 2.5 more times. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so you're going to have to wait till next Sunday.
The countdown begins.
Yeah. But I kind of like it. Like, it's spaced out, lets it breathe. And, you know, I was listening to some reviews, and they were like, you know, the first 3 episodes are kind of slow. But did that episode feel...
I didn't think it felt slow at all. I don't know.
I thought it was perfectly well-paced.
Yeah. You're introducing the characters. You know it's going to be a bit slow. And really, it really is only an introduction that makes you want to know more. Like, what is happening next?
Yeah. Like, I'm really curious to see... Like, obviously, we know kind of who Penguin is, but there's a backstory to him. And, I don't know, there's something that you just want to love about him. Like, yes, he's an evil guy, but there's something there is a backstory, and you want to learn more about it. He does come off as, like, a little bit, not of a mama's boy, but it's like he's got a soft spot for his mom. He is a caregiver, and it's like it makes him likable as a character.
And relatable.
Yeah.
So I have to ask you this question, because at the beginning of the podcast, you asked me what I thought of this episode. So out of 10, what do you rate this episode?
Yeah, honestly, okay. So that was a pilot episode. That was the first episode for the Penguin series. To me, that was a 10 out of 10 episode because of how broad they kind of started things. Like, you see little, I guess
they started off with the Riddler.
Yeah. Where everything's being blown up, and then it's like, okay, Penguin's starting off, but like smooth transition, but like, I don't know, the way they like the thing with the ring, the meeting with Sophia, how he gets out of like the situation with Alberto, how he gets out of it with Sophia, and then like gives the ring back to Sal Maroni, and then just wraps everything up in a bow. Like, that ending was perfect, and then the sense of humor sprinkled throughout like, even the pickle scene was so funny, where he's like, I asked for more pickles and they give me 2. He's like, 2 is more than 1, but is it more?
Sweet Victor's like, do you want my pickle? And he's like, what, after you put your dirty little mouth on it?
Yeah. Oh, God, it's so funny.
It's just the delivery. And I will say one thing, and I'm so sorry that I didn't note this earlier, but it's how even the Penguin he has so much self-awareness that people underestimate him, and he's like, you know what, I just let them think what they want to think at the end of the day. Not that he used these exact words, this is not quotable, but he knows what people think about him, but how intelligent he actually is. And I appreciate that, because How many times have we sometimes felt judged and we're like, you know what? We'll show you. And not necessarily in a negative way, like his way is the extreme, like chaos, but just like in everyday life.
Yep. Be curious, not judgmental, said by Ted Lasso himself. Well, actually, I think it was Wilt Waldman, something like that. I don't know. He quotes him, but I'm getting it from Ted. So, you know what I loved was, like, within the first 15 minutes, like, you have a huge character, at least in, like, the Long Halloween universe, getting shot and killed. And I was just like, WTF, what just happened? And you're like, what's going to happen? Like, where are we going from here? You just took a huge character piece, and I don't know, like, it opens up the doors, I'd say, for where this show's going to go, right? Because now there's a big secret where it's like, you know, you have Penguin who killed Alberto Falcone. I feel like that's going to be explored, the relationships he have, and, like, is that going to be tested? His brothers, what's going to happen? Like, what happened to his brothers? And what happened to his upbringing, right? And, you know, the relationship with his mom, right? Like, I'm so curious. And then even the war between Sal Maroni and the whole Falcone family, I'm dying to know what's going to unfold. But yeah, I'd say 10 out of 10, you know.
Safe to say we're tuning in right away.
Oh, yeah.
On Sunday, 9 p.m.
Oh, so good. Listen, one more. Colin Farrell's bodysuit. What'd you think? Look real.
It made him look totally unrecognizable.
Yeah. So, like, and I'm not talking about the face. I'm talking about his bodysuit. Like, this guy had to wear that all day long. And listen, it was 8 episodes. It's not like even Colin Farrell's like, he came
how
up
long makeup and
3 hours.
3 hours?
And then 40 minutes to take it off.
Crow.
He said, I never want to wear this damn thing again. But you don't blame him, right? Like,
it must be heavy. It must be incredibly hot. And to pull off a performance like that under those kinds of conditions, it's just, it speaks volumes as to what, how brilliant he is as a actor.
yeah.
Yeah, his performance was stellar.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna give it a 10 out of 10. Loved it. Even like the little like penguin intro, I can't even describe it or hum it. But I loved it. It still fits within the Batman universe. Okay. I had a couple questions and I was forgetting. Now I'm remembering. Gotham City. Do you feel like it still felt like it was within the same universe as like the Batman? It's still like, did it feel like it was like a seamless flow?
100%. Like the scene in the warehouse. I think it was the warehouse.
Where they're packing the drugs?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, it just transitioned so smoothly. Was it done by the same producers and directors or different?
Well, like Matt Reeves still had a big part in it. I don't recall who directed each episode. I know it was written by Lauren LaFranc, I want to say. But listen, like Matt Reeves is the one who's behind this. There's going to be an aesthetic and it feels like a grittiness to it. It still felt the same. What I liked about it was like where the less well-to-do places were flooded and the more well-to-do areas weren't.
Oh,
did you pick that
I
up?
did not even notice that.
Yeah, like I'm like, that's
very interesting to me.
Yeah. So like you look at Iceberg Lounge, it is broken down. Like it is. There needs to be a lot of fixing up. Do you think we're gonna see the Batman in this at all?
I'm going to go with no. If we do see the Batman, maybe just like something that alludes to it, like a shadow or something. That'd be kind of neat, but I don't actually think the Batman will be joining this series.
Yeah.
I think the focus is going to be on the two mob families You have Sophia and how her role in all of this is going to take off. And even Victor, as small of a part as he's playing, I wonder how he's going to support the Penguin in this.
Like, it's so interesting. Like, there's so many characters that were introduced, and you're like, I want to know about all of you. But yeah, I think this is not just for comic book fans. Victoria, like, doesn't read comics. She is, I guess, a general audience member. I guess, like, it's like, it's not like she knows exactly what's going on. Like, I follow this stuff all the time, day in, day out. Victoria is, but like, there's something about this universe that you love, right?
Dom's literally wearing a Batman shirt as we speak.
Oh, yeah.
That's how much of a Batman fanatic he is.
So, but like, there's something about it, and I think it's for everybody. Like, especially, obviously, don't show your kids. It's a hard R, very violent, But
it's safe to say, like, we've told our families about it. We've told our friends that haven't watched it yet. Yeah, it's a must-watch series.
Yeah, and I think that's it. Mm-hmm. All right, so Victoria,
Dominic,
thank you very much for joining. Are you going to come back for episode 2?
We'll see.
You always get nervous.
I do. I totally do. Dom's a natural. He's a high school teacher. I feel like he's a natural talker. And then there's me.
No, you're good.
I'm more of the listener. I like to observe differently. And here he is, the whole
You crushed
package.
it. I love hearing your perspective from it, though. And I don't think we talked about the show, but we were kind of like saved it for this.
Yeah.
For the cast.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's going to wrap things up for today. I can't wait to review episode 2, which should be coming out one day next week. Where can you follow along? So if you want to follow along, feel free X/Twitter @BeyondBatSignal. Shoot me an email, comment, questions, whatever you got at beyondthebatsignal@gmail.com. And that is it. This is Beyond the Bat Signal, signing off.